All right, guys, welcome in and a very happy Saturday now. The first Saturday of friggin' February already. February the 3rd. Kind of hard to believe, but that is where we are at, which means close to 150 college basketball games going on here. We got a light NBA slate. It is the calm before next week's out-of-control storm, which will be, of course, the Super Bowl. We'll touch base on some of the props coming up with a guy that knows a thing or two about him. Plus, big UFC card here tonight. Andy Lang, he got a few of those fights under his belt, ready to go here. And, of course, Steve Merril, double R1L. He'll be by. We'll talk a ton of college hoops for you guys, ready to go. And as always, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, those live here on this Saturday on YouTube in the chat. Thumbs up, guys, if you could. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here, and a big shout-out to those joining us on Instagram Live as well. So we welcome in the I know what's new and exciting with that.
UFC fight card that's not great, but it's decent, and we got a couple fights that we could take advantage of. I got to tell you, I really like an underdog on this one, Diana facing Molly McCann, and you've got a rematch. This was a fight that took place back in 2019. And Molly McCann was the winner, but this is a lot of time has passed and a lot has happened with these two different fighters. I really like where Belbita's at, not just with her fighting game, but also just kind of with her life. She is based out of Romania, and it's kind of come out these last couple of weeks that she hasn't really gotten the best training in Romania. There's not a great MMA scene, so she hasn't had a really good way to train and get better. She's moved to Canada and loves it. Very open about, loves her new gym, loves her new coaches. And in that loss, she looked really good. She lost to Karolina Kovacevic, but I was on Kovacevic and we won that bet, but it was a sweaty one. Her striking looked really good. Her wrestling was much better. Her takedown defense was much better. And this is Molly McCann, who is 33 years old. She dropped the R word, retirement. And this is Molly McCann that had a lot of hype a few years ago. Her and Patty Pimblett were kind of teamed up next to each other as these, big hype machines coming out of Europe. And she wins a couple exciting fights. Barstool Sports puts a lot of money behind her, and then she drops 2 fights in the first round. She gets submitted in round 1, 2 fights in a row. And Molly is not the fighter that she used to be. She has been kind of working on her wrestling. She's been taking part in some grappling tournaments, which is a little bit new for her. But this is a very different Diana Belbita than the first time they faced. I don't think Molly's going to have as much success with the wrestling. And in the striking, Molly McCann's been able to bully some of the lesser fighters. But when she takes on someone who's of equal or better, she really has kind of tended to melt. And she's moving down a weight division. So she looked great at weigh-ins. She doesn't look like the weight cut was too bad, but I like the revenge factor. I like that Belbita is 6 years younger. I like that she's on the way up and Molly McCann seems to be on the way down. And the price is crazy, plus 205 on Diana Belbita. Don't be surprised if Belbita pulls the upset and hands Molly a loss, and we hear the retirement word coming out of Molly's mouth a little bit more often. So I think you're getting great value on an underdog here.
Kind of feels like she's been around forever too, doesn't it? It feels like McCann. So it's at that point, right, in all those fighters' careers now, where it's like, all right, you're running out of opportunities. It's either put up or shut up time. What is the main fight here with this UFC card here? Is it a couple that?
Imavov, the main fight. It's not a great main event. I'll just be honest. This is a very weak main event. I'm not real impressed with either fighter. You got Dolidze, who won, I think, 3 or 4 in a row, but not against the best competition. Knocks out Pause. He's beat a couple guys before that who aren't. Wins against Jack Hermanson in the crazy losing that fight. In a calf slicer, which you basically never see. He gets a very strange win. Then he comes out and loses to Marvin Vettori. Then you got Imavov, who's coming off of a fight against Chris Curtis where he was winning, but they have an accidental head clash, and the fight gets ruled a no contest. So you got a guy in a main event coming off a loss, and you got a guy coming off of a no contest. So it's not great. I think Imavov is a little bit better fighter, but I'm not really sure there's value in the line. He's the rightful favorite, hovering around that minus 160, minus 170. I do like him to win. I also like overs in this one. I don't think either guy is good enough to submit or knock out the other one. So I think if this thing gets out of the first round, you're going to see kind of a lighter, I don't want to say lighter, but Dolidze is not a volume striker. He'll kind of load up and explode for some big shots. And if he doesn't get the big time knockout, his volume goes down. And then you got Imavov, who's just kind of peppering shots left and right. He will work more kicks than Dolidze, I believe. So it's not a great main event. I think some of the other fights are going to be way more exciting. You got Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. Don't blink in that one. These guys are just slew of round one and round two finishes. Dober's a knockout king. Moicano loves to wrestle and submit. So I actually think this is one of those deals where the main event is not going to be the most exciting fight. You got some really, really good fights on the prelims and the undercard. And I think that's where the more bettable fights are going to be as well.
All right, see, there you go. UFC action here tonight. And I know, Andy, you were on Bet on it yesterday, in fact, and I would encourage you guys to check that out, of course, on the YouTube WagerTalk channel there, along with a whole lot of other great content about the Super Bowl coming up. We're in prop hell now for the following week when it comes to this game, Andy, because there's only one of 9 million props that people can just go completely overboard on. I know you had a couple on that show yesterday on Bet on It, but how about overall approach for those joining us here today about how not to absolutely bankrupt yourself by going absolutely bonkers on 1,000,001 props that you have available to you right now?
The big phrase when you're looking at Super Bowl props is calm down. You do not have to bet all of it is one game, people. It is one NFL game. There's no reason to throw a bunch of props out there. I have one official prop listed at wagertalk.com. And it was great. Kelly told me that she's like, hey, I really like this prop. And I was like, what is it? She told me, and I was like, where'd you get that prop? And she was like, well, somebody told me about it. And I was like, yeah, that was me. We texted about this the other night. So she told me, she gave me a prop that I gave her. So that was a fun moment. So yeah, you can look at trends, but also just don't forget these teams are coming off of long rest. Some of these guys have been in Super Bowls before. Some of them have not. So you can get some jitters and everything. Just do your due diligence and do your research. Look for holes in the props that you're trying to bet. Like, look for reasons to not bet them. Because if you can find a reason to not bet it, great sign you need to lay off. I would recommend to people not having that many props on there. I think I had 5 last year. We went 3-2 and turned like the plus 3.08 units of profit. And that was perfect for me. So 5 props, you turn a profit. I think that's kind of what everyone should be aiming for. I have purposely not put in a lot of props because I want to see where some of these lines move, and I also want to nail them down because there's like 20 props that I like, but I need to narrow it down to the props that I love. And we got a 4% prop that is up right now that I absolutely love. Those are the ones that you should be focusing on, and those are the ones that I've used. I think we're 47-25 run in NFL. We only had one play last weekend in NFL. It was a 4% cash. The weekend before that, 2-1. So you can see like the lower volume, being really, really picky on your props is the way to go. That's what we've been doing, and I expect more success in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. We did see the 49er money make a comeback over the last couple of days, pushing this thing back up to 2.5 in a lot of spots. So it ain't ever getting to 3. It probably ain't getting to pick 'em. So I think what you see is what you get. If you're holding out in hopes of getting some sort of crazy number, yeah, take a number because you're not going to get there anytime soon there, Andy. But you did mention you've got one up that you absolutely love. It sounds like you've got a couple of UFC bets available for folks. What else is going on over at WagerTalk.com for you?
Yeah, we got a Saturday pack that is up right now. Dan is very happy. It's lacrosse season. NCAA lacrosse season started. Just barely missed 60% last year on all lacrosse plays. It just came in at 59%, which is a fantastic year. Hope to get to 60%, and that starts today. A couple plays are up, and that is included in the Saturday pack. So we got some UFC plays. We've got some lacrosse plays, and any other plays that we add throughout the day will be a part of that one. So if you're just looking for some action for today, we've got you covered at WagerTalk.com.
All right, good stuff. Andy, best of luck this weekend, man. Crush it. I know you have a golf tournament that you have to watch as you get ready for Pebble Beach, and Josh Allen to tell everyone this is a great tournament, but I really wish I never have to play here again. Good seeing you, Andy. We do have, which honestly was one of the funniest interviews I've ever seen. He finally beats Tom Brady at something, I guess, the golf course. They interview him after the round yesterday to Pebble Beach, and all he told the guy was like, listen, this is a great tournament, dude, but I never want to play here again because that would mean he's in the Super Bowl. And yes, Josh, we get it. You don't want to be playing golf the week prior to the big game. Pretty funny stuff there. We do have, guys, and get ready for it, 150 some odd, I think right around 149, some along those lines, some obnoxious number of college hoops games going on. And no doubt a lot of you that are joining us here live today on Last Call Saturday, you guys are ready to dive in. Tip in about 45 minutes or so for the action all day long. And really from here on out, Saturdays are all about college hoops until we get to what is known as madness, and that is March. But I still trying to wrap my head around the idea that it's friggin' February already. I know somebody who's wrapped his head around it, though. He's always ready to go, and that is Double R1L Steve Merril joining us, stepping up and in here, Merril, on what is just a absolutely loaded card here today in college hoops. I know you've got a couple of games you're going to break down for us here on the show. And then those of you, again, live, you got questions about hoops. Now's the time to drop them in the chat room, both on YouTube, as well as those of you joining us on Instagram live here today. Welcome in. Go ahead, drop your questions about any of these college hoops games. Steve and I will get to as many as we can, Merril, but we're going to start it off talking a little Big Ten action, because if you didn't sleep well last night, watch a Big Ten game. You will have, especially this one, Rutgers taking on Michigan here, Merril, in a battle of, well, yeah, good luck. It was nice seeing you. NIT, anyone? What are you thinking here, Rutgers, Michigan? Are they even doing the NIT anymore, Merril?
That's a good question. The CIT or the CBI, one of those has gone bye-bye, right? Since COVID, I think one of those is gone. And people don't realize this, you've actually got to pay normally to be in those other two tournaments, like the CIT and the CBI. And that's why William and Mary, when they were decent like 7-8 years ago, they never went. You actually lose money going to those things. So it's kind of ridiculous. We're going to get to as many games as we can. Drop the games you want to talk about in the live chat. And of course, if you're watching the replay here on YouTube afterwards, comment below. I will be checking the comments throughout the afternoon, and I'll be replying back as well. So if you like some nighttime games or have a question, drop it in there. And I also recommend people check out my top 25 video, which is on YouTube right here on WagerTalk TV. 5 top 25 matchups, but let's get more specific. 4 top 10 matchups, Joe Raineri. 3 of them going today and 1 tomorrow on Sunday. It's the first time in history, I believe, we've had 4 in a week, and it's impossible to have more than 5. It's just a mathematical thing. But we have 4 top 10 matchups. So just a great card. I've got 5 best bets alone, but we're going to break down some free plays. Let's look at Rutgers, Michigan at 4 o'clock Eastern this afternoon. And you know I hate to catch a falling knife. I don't like getting cut. It's an analogy I use quite often. But there are certain spots where I think you could try to catch that falling knife right after it bottoms. Did a standalone video earlier this week on your Miami Heat after 7 straight losses at home against Sacramento. I mentioned I thought they would win, and they did so. And I think this is a spot where maybe we can try to catch that falling knife with Michigan for a couple reasons. 7-14 on the season, Rutgers 10-10. They're both having bad years. But this is a winnable game for Michigan. If you look at their recent losses, and by the way, just to set this up, they've lost 9 of their last 10 games straight up. They have failed to cover 10 of their last 11 games. They have only one cover in their last game since early December. So we are starting to get some line value. You say, well, they're still a favorite in this game, but they would have been like a 6-7 point favorite just a few weeks ago. Now it's -4. It actually opened 3.5. We saw some leading indicator books overnight move to 4 first. I do think that's the sharp side in this game. And there's a few reasons why. First of all, it's a winnable game, as I mentioned. They just got blown out against Michigan State. They lost to Iowa at home before that. They were a huge dog at Purdue when they got blown out before that. Home dog against Illinois. They did beat Ohio State as a slight favorite. They were a dog at Maryland right before that. You get the point. This is the most winnable game they've had in over a month. It's Saturday. The students are back. I don't think they've tossed the towel. I think that's a very overused adage in sports. And this is a winnable game. And the other reason I like fading Rutgers here, I love playing against bad offensive teams on the road. Defense, you can step it up. Even if you're not a great, shooter or dribbler, you can play defense. It's an emotional thing. It's a coaching thing. But when you don't shoot well, it's hard to fix that. And when you're away from your home arena, it's even worse. And Rutgers is a really bad offensive team this year. If you just look at just basic rankings, for example, like efficiency rankings, they're one of the 30 or 40 worst teams in the country. In fact, checking the KenPom, they're 296, but they're the 7th best defensive team. That's why they've gone 10-10 this year, and that is a little bit misleading. But look at their offensive numbers this year on the overall 38.5% shooting, 28.5% from three-point range, and 64.5% from the free throw line. Those are terrible numbers across the board. Not a surprise that they're 1-7 away from home. I think this is a good spot for Michigan, and we'll for once try to catch a falling knife. I think it works today.
Yeah, well, it's one of these two teams better catch something. My goodness, it has not been good at all. You see, we will get to some questions about the Big Ten. I know Johnny Boy's got a question about Indiana. We're going to get to that here in just a minute because, yes, that line is on the climb here. But let's talk about another game you got lined up for us here. How about a little Big 12 action? What many people believe to be the best college basketball conference. Cincinnati taking on Texas Tech, heading to Lubbock. Not an easy place to play. They are getting a few points here. I think Texas Tech 5.5 is what they are laying. Any value with the dog, or are they in trouble in this one against Texas Tech?
I think it's a good spot for Texas Tech. In fact, I've got 5 strong best bets for Saturday, as I mentioned at WagerTalk.com. A 5-for-1 special right now. The game that just missed the cut was this one. I would say this is my 6th play of the day. So I definitely like Texas Tech, probably worthy of a 1-2% opinion play. All the best bets today, by the way, are 4% plays. And there's a few reasons why I like Texas Tech. First of all, strong home court. I love playing strong home courts this time of the year as we're in February. Part of the conference basketball season. Texas Tech is 11-0 straight up at home this year, and they entered this game off a road loss as a dog at TCU. Nothing wrong by losing by 7 as a 5-point dog at TCU. So it's a strong bounce back spot back home after a road loss, undefeated home court. And meanwhile, Cincinnati now playing their 3rd road game in 4 games. Not a good spot for them. And I rate Texas Tech as the better team overall in this game. And just like I said earlier, bad offensive teams on the road. Cincinnati, 32.5% shooting from 3 this year. How about 23.7% on the road? And they shoot less than 68% from the free throw line. So they're not a good shooting team, and we're playing against an undefeated home court. This looks like a good spot for Texas Tech today on Saturday. That's a early evening game at 6 Eastern.
Yeah, all right. Tech getting ready to continue to roll here. It's been absolutely impressive so far on what they've been able to do. All right, Merril, we've got a whole lot of college hoops questions coming in, so let's see if we can rattle off a few of these, and we'll start with Indiana here, who a nice win finally at Assembly Hall there in that last game during the week against Iowa, and now of course they got Penn State coming into town. I've seen the side I think was at 5.5. I think it has climbed up to 6 at this particular point here. So Indiana finally broke that 3-game losing streak with the win Tuesday nights. But now what? I also believe they lost another one of their starters in that game as well. So what are we looking at in this one here, Merril? You think the movement towards Indiana is justified?
Well, it's definitely the move. The sharp money's on Indiana. In fact, as we're doing this show live right now, about 2-3 minutes ago, it steamed up to 6.5. So yeah, it's gone from 5.5, 6, now 6.5. Like you said, tips off in about 35 minutes at noon Eastern. So this is an early start. Total has actually dropped from 150.5 down to 149.5. And I point that out because these are two fast-paced teams. Penn State playing very up-tempo and fast this year. They haven't played yet this season, but you can make a case it's a little bit of a revenge spot for Indiana. They were eliminated in the Big Ten tournament last year by Penn State. An upset win by Penn State is a 3.5-point dog. So, maybe they have this game circled for that reason. They are coming off the impressive win against Iowa. They stay at home, though. Penn State coming off a win against that bad Rutgers team, as I just mentioned. By the way, they were a 7-point dog on the road in that game, won by 15. That didn't make much sense in hindsight. But Penn State's still just 2-8 away from home. They were 1-8 until that win at Rutgers. So I think that's one of the reasons we have seen some sharp money on Indiana today.
Yeah, it's Mike Rhodes' first season there in Happy Valley trying to put it together. But the one thing we know about Indiana is they don't spend an awful lot of time losing at Assembly Hall here. So interesting stuff in that one. How about the number one team, Merril? And, you talk to enough people. They are not convinced UConn is the number one team in the country, which is interesting. But they will have a chance to prove it on the road against Pitino and the Johnnies here today. What do you think about St. John's, who is catching what? What are they catching now? 4 or 5 points, somewhere in that ballpark there. Are you buying the Johnnies to hold serve at home?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Connecticut's probably the number one team, but they're definitely a top 4, top 5 team. If you look at the KenPom rankings right now, I think they're third. Their offensive efficiency is really good this year. It's been top 5 most of the season. As you guys know, I always love to look at pace of play, and that's something that jumps out to me in this game. St. John's likes up-tempo basketball. UConn plays very slow half-court. Normally, I would lean towards UConn for that reason, but home teams can often dictate the tempo. So if St. John's is able to speed this game up a little bit, they might have success. It's also a revenge spot for St. John's. And they, by the way, played UConn tough a month and a half ago back in late December, lost by only 4 as an 11-point dog on the road. And you would have thought that would have really been a tough spot. And by the way, that did stay under by about 10 or 12 points under the total, as UConn did dictate tempo. But St. John's was okay in that game. And the fact they only lost by 4, shooting 38% and only 23% from 3, tells you that maybe they are a live dog in this game. And they actually got to the free throw line more on the road than Connecticut did. So I think there's some positives from that first box score that would point to St. John's being a live dog +4. And right as I say that, we check the WagerTalk live odds screen. It's steaming down to 3.5 now at some sharp books. So it looks like St. John's is the sharp side in this game at noon Eastern.
Yeah, well, and it looks like Caravan there for UConn with the ankle in which he hurt in that last game. I don't see why he would play. I mean, he hurt it in Providence there. He had the x-rays after the game. They said there was swelling, but quite honestly, I don't think there's any reason for UConn to rush him back in any way, shape, or form. So it doesn't shock me that the Johnnies are getting all sorts of love in the marketplace on this one. I think I saw the University of Miami was the other half of that question, at home here today against Va Tech. Both teams coming off of a loss there. Va Tech, I believe, was at home. Miami was on the road at North Carolina State. Kind of hard for me to go against Miami and that shooting at home here. Even if they don't play any defense, they certainly have more firepower to beat Va Tech here on their own home court, Merril. I think the total's up to 152.5 as well.
Yeah, I think Miami's a better offensive team. Like you said, Virginia Tech probably holds the defensive edge in this game. Once again, though, I feel like the better defensive teams are better plays at home. This line has gone from 2.5 up to 3.5. We've even seen some 4s out there now. 151.5 up to 152.5 on the total. This is another early game that tips off here in about a half hour. It's also a quick revenge spot for Virginia Tech, as they just lost 3 weeks ago. But once again, let's set up revenge. It's something that's vastly overused in college hoops because almost every second meeting occurs in February. So almost half the games today, there's quote unquote revenge. Revenge works better, I think, with home courts, strong home courts with the better team. Miami won the game on the road as a dog, so they probably are the better team. And if you dig into that box score, you see Virginia Tech shot 48% from the field and still lost at home. And they actually made more threes. So that's not a good sign. And Miami actually got to the free throw line 10 times more on the road. And, usually the home teams get some beneficiary calls. So I think this is a good spot for Miami, and that's why the line's climbing higher.
Yeah, no, it's good here. We also have a UNC, I believe, a big question for North Carolina, getting ready to go at it a little bit later today against a team they know pretty well, that being the Duke Blue Devils. Duke quietly under the radar this season. You notice that, Merril? Not a lot of conversations about Duke over the last since conference play here yet. You know, they had that little bit of a lull there, and now all of a sudden they seem with Filipowski ready to roll over teams here. I don't know. This is a big one here today. It feels like we're going to get some points, but 4.5 feels like a big number for a game that, quite honestly, feels like it's going to come down to the last possession.
Yeah, and I think Duke is probably a little bit of a public dog in this game, and we have seen this line drop. It opened as high as 5 in some spots yesterday. It's down to 4, 4.5. It was actually down to 4 overnight. Now it's back to 4.5, as you mentioned. What I want to point out about this game, and by the way, this is one of my 5 games in my top 25 video here, so go check that out for a deeper dive. But you talk about Duke a little bit under the radar. How about this, Joe? North Carolina's defense right now is the 4th most efficient rated defense in the country out of 362 teams. I think that's the big under the radar stat in this game, because we all know North Carolina likes to play up tempo and fast. They're always good offensively. They've been a sneaky good defensive team this year, 4th best in the country. And I do think that's a reason maybe the total, maybe we do see an under here, even though it's gone from 151 up to 152.5, 153. 2 really good teams here, but I think a lot of people don't realize how good North Carolina's defense has been this season. And they're also, by the way, at home, strong home court, coming off a road loss, another angle that usually works pretty well.
Yeah, no, it does. That is going to be a war. It usually is on that one. We also have out west, Utah State getting ready to take on San Diego State here. This feels like a pretty decent bounce back spot here for the Aztecs at home, taking on Utah State, who's just, I don't know if they're over. I can't figure out Utah State. I get that they can shoot the 3. They play good defense, nice home court, but they're going on the road here, Merril, to San Diego State here. It feels like maybe San Diego State rights the ship here in this one at home.
Yeah, this is a fun game to talk about. I'm glad this was brought up for a couple reasons. First of all, hit subscribe and hit the bell for instant alerts here on WagerTalk TV. We talk about doing that all the time because my Super Bowl Fade the Public video will be up next week. And then I mentioned that college basketball top 25 video. It's up right now for Saturday. This didn't make the video because only one of the 2 teams is ranked. But an angle that Brian Power and myself have both talked about for a couple of seasons, that it often comes up in my top 25 video that I do each week this time of year, is playing these unranked favorites against ranked teams, especially home favorites. And San Diego State qualifies. They're actually unranked right now. Utah State is ranked. Yet San Diego State is a substantial favorite. If you look at the KenPom rankings, they're ranked higher than Utah State overall in efficiency rating. So this is one of those spots that's worked very well. And the reason I bring up the Fade the Public video is because this is kind of a Fade the Public angle. This is a public dog. It's a ranked dog against an unranked team. And it's a situation that keeps cashing. And like you said, I do think there's some good reasons to back San Diego State here as well. First of all, another quality team coming off a road loss, back at home on a strong home court where they're a perfect 10-0 straight up, undefeated home court. They lost to Colorado State. No shame in that loss. Thin air and altitude. They were an underdog in the game, so it's not like it's a red flag or anything. Meanwhile, Utah State coming off 3 straight wins in covers, including a home win in cover, and they've got Nevada and Boise on deck at home, so it's a standalone road game. Looks like a good setup for San Diego State situationally, and then we've got that whole unranked favorite angle that's worked very well. So I would take a look at them. Not in my top 25 video, but it's an angle I do talk a lot about in that video, and it's also a little bit of a Fade the Public type of angle as well.
Yeah, they do get to the free throw line a lot, Utah State. So it should be a good one there, guys, coming up out west. And of course, Merril, it would not be a Saturday with you on the show if we did not talk. And don't blame me. Blame Bill Sandoval in the chat room for wanting to know what the hell is he doing with Charleston and your alma mater, William and Mary here. 12.5, I believe, is what Charleston. Now, you and I, we talked about this on a college basketball tip-off show earlier this week because we were wondering if Charleston was there going to be any value based upon their games earlier this week. What are you thinking? 12.5? Are you laying it, or are you backing your William and Mary squad here?
Yeah, I'm double layered here. I've got the sweatshirt. I've got the actual the t-shirt. Got the belly button too. You got to see that on national TV. That's a good look. But they look so bad on Thursday night. I was at the Delaware game, first row, and I look up at the new scoreboard, the new video screen they have, and I see the CBS logo. And I'm like, this game can't be on national TV. And I look, and it was on CBS Sports Network. It was a nationally televised game. So big spot for William & Mary. What do? They go out and they lay the biggest egg I've seen in quite a while. They lose 81-53, a 28-point loss. They were down by like 35 at one point. Gave up 60% shooting. They'd had 3 straight road games before that. The last time they were at home against Campbell, January 18th, they gave up 62% shooting. I mean, they just played the worst defense. They're in the 340s in efficiency. You just can't play bad teams like that. With this said, it is the Gold Rush game today at 2 o'clock Eastern. It's the Charter Day weekend. It's a 300-and-some-year-old school. It's a big deal, and they pack the crowd. They're giving away T-shirts. There's a lot of group outings. This will be the biggest and loudest home crowd they've had all season for what that's worth. So you do want to take a reason to play them, and they're coming off a blowout loss. The look-ahead overnight line was as low as 9. It was 11 this morning. Now, like you said, Joe, it's 12. So, yes, we are getting some line value of a basket or so. And Charleston also had a big game against Wilmington, and that was actually a revenge game, I believe. But they lost as a home favorite. So that's bad news. They're focused here. So it's a tough call. I mean, there probably is line value with William & Mary, but there's no way I'm playing this game. They're not a good team, and they're facing the best team in the CAA off a loss in a focus spot. Let's just hope it's somewhat of a close game today. I'll be there. Look for me in the first row behind the scorer's table.
Well, I sure as hell hope you're going to be there. There he is, back in his William & Mary days.
Pull up the jersey, yes. See if it's my belly button. I don't think that's me.
Look, I'm telling you, back in the old intramural WagerTalk days there. Very impressive stuff.
Yeah, we got Merril, video of that stuff, too, as well.
Let me go out west, because I know we had a question about Colorado taking on Utah to Pac-12 here. And Utah, it feels like it's slipping away here. I can't see a situation in which the Pac-12 is within their reach to win, so they're going to need, obviously, some sort of at-large bid. They're coming off a couple of losses here. They are back home, which tends to be pretty good for them. But, boy, this Colorado team, they can shoot. They can really, really shoot. The problem is, can they get enough stops against the bigs here in Utah to be able to win this game on the road? I'm seeing 2.5, 3, somewhere in that ballpark there.
Yeah, and, we just talked about, I like to fade bad offensive teams on the road. But like you said, Joe, Colorado is a good offensive team. So they're a team I do look to use occasionally, but I don't think this is a good setup. The other thing that's been the theme of the show here is strong home courts, quality teams back at home after maybe a loss or so. We talked a lot of spots like San Diego State and North Carolina both qualify. Texas Tech, undefeated home court, qualifies. But then that William & Mary game we just talked about, that's a bad team at home off a loss. That doesn't catch my attention. I don't like asking bad teams to do something good for me. I do think this is a good setup for Utah. And though Colorado has been good offensively this year, and they also are used to the thin air and altitude, they've been on the road quite often. So I think this could be a little bit of a regression spot. And I think Utah comes to play. Their season's not over. Strong home court after a loss. It looks like a good setup for the Utes.
I see the Sycamores in the chat here. William coming into town looking for Drake or Indiana State, a little Mo Valley. And boy, Indiana State, Merril, has been a team that under the radar has been just cashing ticket after ticket after ticket here. In fact, the only loss they have, guess who? Against Drake last month there. So this is a team that is if you have not watched Indiana State, guys, check it out. They are without a doubt one of the most fun mid-major teams that you will watch. Their entire lineup is filled, Merril, with guys that can shoot anybody out of the gym. It is really, really a fun team to watch. But having said that, they got a little revenge on their mind now. They are at home. It would feel like, all right, this is the opportunity to avenge that loss last month, your only loss in Mo Valley. What do we do here? Indiana State 5.5, 6, somewhere in that ballpark?
Yeah, a lot of things set up well here for Indiana State for the reasons you mentioned. I mean, first of all, they've got the revenge motives. That always makes your short list this time of year. They're 19-3 straight up, so they're obviously a Class A team, like I talked about earlier, and they have a 9-0 undefeated home court. So we get Class A team, undefeated home court with revenge. They're coming off a win at Belmont, so it's not like they're coming in motivated off a loss, but it doesn't matter because, like you said, they've won 6 straight games since that Drake loss. They'd won 2 on the other side, so they've gone 8-1 their last 9. The only loss was the Drake loss by 11. and they're actually only a 2.5-point dog in that game. So let's dig into that box score and see, if we could gather anything from it. It was tied up at the half. The difference in the game was really a 40 to 37% difference from 3-point range. And in that game, Indiana State actually made and attempted more free throws. Does concern me a little bit, though, that they had a 15-3 turnover deficit. But once again, I doubt that's going to happen at home today. And that was really the difference in that game, is that Drake only turned the ball over 3 times. Indiana State doesn't force a lot of turnovers, and Drake does take care of the ball. But once again, back at home, I doubt they're going to have a negative 12 turnover differential. And I like Indiana State in this game. It sets up well for a revenge bounce back.
Yeah, no, it really it does. I think that's going to be a fun one coming up. And again, if you guys haven't checked it out, Indiana State is a fun team to watch going on here. A couple of the other big ones coming up here today as we take a look in the chat. Arkansas at LSU, Merril. There's some questions about that one. And then, of course, tonight, we've got a couple of games that we're going to learn a little something about the moxie of some teams like Tennessee taking on Kentucky, as well as, I believe, Houston may have something to say about Kansas, although Kansas, like Indiana, one of these teams, very tough to bet against at Fog Allen at a pick. When's the last time we saw Kansas at a pick 'em at Fog Allen, Merril?
Yeah, exactly right. And I, of course, had both that and the Kentucky game in my top 25 video. So definitely go check that out here on WagerTalk TV for a deep dive into both of those games. 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock starts, I believe. So you have plenty of time, Eastern time. Kansas and Houston. I was trying to look up the last time they played. They haven't played in the last 10 years. They've played only 7 times ever. And 3 of the 7, I believe, Joe, were in the NCAA tournament. But of course, Houston is now in the Big 12 conference. Kansas, undefeated home court. That definitely catches your attention. Kentucky as a home dog, that catches your attention. And what's interesting also about Houston and Tennessee, they're the number 1 and number 2 rated defensive efficiency teams in the country, and they're both laying points on the road. But once again, that strong defense, I think, works better at home. And Kentucky and Kansas would definitely be, in my opinion, live dogs if you could still get them as home dogs. We'll see where those lines settle. As far as that Arkansas-LSU game, LSU coming in at home off of 3 straight losses. The last 2, though, have been as a road dog, and even the loss before that was as a home dog. The last time they were favored was at home against Ole Miss, -3. They won by 9, and they lost as a dog before that. So, yes, they're 1-4 straight up their last 5, but they've been an underdog in every one of those games. They've actually gone 3-0, actually 4-0 the last 4 times they've been favored. I think every win has basically been by 8 points or more, so probably a good bounce-back spot for LSU at home today. And Arkansas, by the way, really struggling in conference play this season, and their team I'd be careful with right here. It looks like after that win against Missouri, they're more likely to regress again today.
Yeah, that was a big spot for them to get it done here. Nicholas, Princeton 6.5 versus Brown. Yes, Princeton played last night, but so did Brown. This is that time of year now where they start doing the whole back-to-back situation in the Ivy. So just keep that in mind. Brown was at home last night. Princeton was on the road. So now Princeton got to try one more time and take on Brown, or actually, I believe they're all playing within the other, because Harvard's playing the whole Ivy League back-to-back here today and this weekend. So buckle up. That should be a pretty good one, since Princeton is really everyone's darling from a year ago. Can they keep it going? That remains to be seen. All right, Merril, before we get you out of here, we'll do one more game, and you can remind the folks exactly what you got rolling over at WagerTalk, because it is a, big weekend here, not only in college hoops, but the NBA is continuing to roll. And then, of course, we got the Super Bowl next week. But this is an interesting spot for Florida taking on Texas A&M. So it just feels like Florida, great. Congratulations. You came back. They've had back-to-back wins now that were, I don't know, dare I say, above their pay grade here. Now they got to go on the road and do it again against Buzz and A&M. I'm not buying it. It feels like this is a good spot to back Texas A&M here.
I agree. Yeah, it's got a lot of the things we've talked about here on the show, today, as far as the setup and whatnot. We've got a winning team. I don't want to say they're a Class A team, but they're 7-3 straight up at home this year, Texas A&M. And they're coming in off a road loss at Ole Miss. That was a bad road loss, or an 8-point favorite. Home loss, 8-point home favorite lost by 3. So it should be a focus spot for that reason. And then on top of it, like you said, Joe, I think it's more of a play against spot for Florida. 4 straight wins, the upset win against Kentucky, that high-scoring back-and-forth game against Georgia right before that. They've put up 196 points, but they've given up 189 the last 2. I don't care. Even if you like to play fast, that still takes a lot out of you. And now they have to travel for the second straight time this week with just a couple days off. Looks like a good setup for A&M today, and that game tips off at 4 o'clock Eastern this afternoon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, I would not shy away from backing Baylor tonight, guys, at home, taking on Iowa State, another one of these ranked teams on the road, taking on an unranked team, and yet the unranked team is the favorite at home, and for good reason.
No, Baylor's ranked. Baylor's ranked. That's in my video. So I think they're ranked.
They come in
unless
there?
I looked at it wrong.
I thought they were because
yeah,
why?
I mean, I'm using the AP, Joe. They're barely ranked. They're like in the 20s, so maybe the coaches poll they're not. Yeah, I'm looking at the AP, and there were so many I didn't even look at the coaches poll because sometimes what I do when we don't have a big card is I'll use that or I'll use the additional votes. And I mean, shoot, we had 4 top 10 matchups, but yeah, that's actually the one that's not a top 10. If I'm not mistaken, actually. I think it's a top 20 I still said, and I'll pull it up right now for you. You can tell how little I look at the rankings otherwise, other than doing the video, and I know you don't either. But I have them at 18th, actually. I think they're 18th in the AP, 12 versus 18. But you're right. They're the lower-ranked team. And what's interesting, too, was what you said. The fact you didn't feel they were ranked, I think, is an important point because they probably feel like the dog in this game, even though they're favored. So I agree with you. I think that's another game in which they've kind of got that mindset, just like, San Diego State, who is unranked. And I lean towards Baylor in that one as well. Yeah.
I mean, especially in that new building they got, that new arena there. And boy,
I think this is an off-site. I think it's in Waco, but in another building. So double check that. This didn't make my card, but I did talk about it in the video. I think it might be a different building, but it's still Waco. So unless that's the new building,
yeah, it's still in town, right? Yes, it's still going to be in. Its place is going to be jammed with Baylor fans there. And listen, if I can tell you this, if Iowa State comes away with the win in this game, I will eat crow. I will say this team is way better than I give it credit for, but I'm not buying it. I think Baylor shoots him out of the gym here today.
So Joe, it's saying Foster Pavilion. If you're familiar with that, I'm not sure which arena that is.
That's that's their new one. That's the new one.
Okay, so that's why I saw it listed. I saw it listed on one of the matchup pages I was using, which made me think maybe it wasn't their normal arena. So that is the new arena then, Foster Pavilion.
That's the new arena they built, and they had the unveiling last month there, or right in the end of December. And it's gorgeous. It's packed. It's got more seats. So it should be crazy to say the least. And I think Baylor gets it done here. So Merril, you mentioned you got 4-pack, 5-pack of college hoops games going on right now at WagerTalk. What's up? Ready, locked, loaded, ready to roll here today.
Yeah, 5 best bets. And I know we went over a ton of early games here that are about to go live in 10, 15 minutes. So we gave those free for you here on the show. But all of my best bets don't start for another 3 hours plus, including several night games. So they're all late afternoon and night games. Single game is 25. If you want one best bet today, it's 25. Or you can get the 5-pack for 29. That means you're getting the additional 4 games for $1 a piece. I mean, it's a fantastic offer. And oh, by the way, I swept the board last Saturday, a 100% sweep in basketball. It was the first Saturday with no football since August. I went 3-0, 100% sweep in college hoops last Saturday. Now I've got 5 best bets this Saturday. Not a bad time to check out my personal best bets. The one-day package is fine, but obviously the longer packages save you money and make you more money. I have a 7-day basketball combo right now for a very special price, just $89. It gets you 7 days and nights of college and pro basketball for a discounted price. No promo code needed. And, of course, the best deal is the Super Bowl to Super Bowl special that we've been talking about this week here on Wager Talk. It gets you every play from next Super Bowl Sunday through next year's Super Bowl on February 9th, 2025. It's a full year of all sports. But here's the bonus. If you sign up right now, you get the next 8 days and nights included for free along the way. I mentioned this yesterday. I mentioned it Thursday. I won Thursday. I won Friday. Swept the board both Thursday and Friday in college hoops. So you would have had 10 days. You would have had 9 days. Now you have 8 days free, but it includes the 5 best bets now and a full year plus of college and pro football, college and pro basketball, and baseball. And don't forget, it's a leap year. You get an extra day here in February this year. So it's a fantastic offer. And oh, by the way, an instant $800 discount on top of it. Works out to just $23 a week. That's less than 1 play a day. Over $3 a day, over $1 a play for the next year plus and the next 8 days free. Check it out. No promo code needed. plus free plays daily. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker with shortcut WT.buzz/SM.
Great stuff, Merril. As always, big shout out to the chat there. Shay, welcome in. Glad that you could join us live here each and every Saturday, by the way. Important to note, guys, we do this last call each and every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right up until the opening tip-off. And there's a lot of college basketball to be played here over the next month, so certainly hope you guys will come back. Hit that subscribe button and join us again next Saturday for a whole lot of college hoops, NBA, and then, of course, there's this event next week. I think Super Bowl. We'll have some last-minute plays and bets on that, too. So big shout-out to all you guys joining us in the chat. We certainly appreciate it. Listen, best of luck with all your plays. Make sure you're visiting Steve. Make sure you're visiting Andy over at WagerTalk.com. Partner up with him for a monster weekend. And, of course, come back and join us again next week. So best of luck with